Hello friends, thank you for once again tuning in to this channel. Thank you so much for your audience. In this session, we want to take a look at how to simplify a SAD or SADs. Okay, you may have learned that a SAD, in simple term, we can say a SAD is a root that is not exact. Otherwise also called an irrational number. So by root we mean either square root, and for square root we have, for instance, a radical. This symbol is what we refer to a radical. When you have that radical with no number appearing on it out here, we call this a square root. Now if you have another radical like what we have here, this other radical, remember this symbol is what we are calling a radical. So when we have such, it's called a square root, and this is a cube root. So in general terms, they are called roots, but we could have to distinguish between one root or from one root to another. Like if you have another radical, say like what we have here, and we have with a 4 written there, then this we call a fourth root. So we are saying that if you have any root that is not exact, for instance, we have root of 2. This is not exact. If you find its root even from your mathematical tables or calculators, you don't get an exact value like you would with, for instance, a root 4. The square root of 4 is 2. That is, we call that exact, and therefore root 4 is not a SAD. But root 2, square root of 2, is a SAD. Again, we look at if we, on the other hand, had a cube root, let's say, of 5. This is not exact. Can't get the exact value. In other words, it will be some value point, a number of decimal places, to a number of decimal places, even recurring. So we say this is also not, this is a SAD. When the root is not exact, what you have is called a SAD. So we have SADs of different orders. But in this clip, our major interest is in how to simplify a SAD. To begin with, we would say, having known what a SAD is, we say that a SAD is in its simplest form if the number under the radical does not have a root, an exact root. What do we mean? I repeat that a SAD is said to be in its simplest form, and in most cases, and almost all cases, will be expected to express our SADs in their simplest form. So a SAD, you can put this down, a SAD is said to be in its simplest form when the number under the radical and remember, the radical is what we are referring to as the root sign. These are radicals. So if the number under the radical, and the radical could be a square root, like what we have here, a cube root, a fourth root, a fifth root, etc., etc. If the number under the radical cannot be simplified further as a perfect or exact root. E.g., for instance, if we have, we could be asked to simplify this surd root 18. So when you are given such, this is a square root of 18, which is a surd, but not in its simplest form. So if you are asked to simplify it, you are supposed to rewrite this 18 as a product of factors, one of which or two of which are perfect squares whose square root can be found. For instance, like in this case, we know that we can write root of 18 as being root of 6 multiplied by 3. This is also root of 18. But when you look at this, 6 is not a perfect square, neither is 3 a perfect square. So if we are to simplify this, it would still be difficult because 6 is not a perfect square and 3 is not a perfect square. But if we, for instance, considered writing root 18 as 9 times 2, then you can see here we have 9 being a perfect square, and of course multiplied by 2 to give us 18. Now in this sense, when written in this form, we are now able to find the square root of 9, because this is also the same as root 9 times root 2, square root of 9 multiplied by square root of 2. But we know that square root of 9 is plus or minus 3 in most cases, unless we are given conditions. We tend to lean towards the positive root sign, the positive root of any number. So like in this case, we'll have root of 9, which is 3, multiplied by root of 2. Now 2 is not an exact a complete square, so its square root is not exact, and therefore we leave this root 2 as it is, as a surd. So in this case, now our root 18 is 3 root 2. And when written in this form, we say it is in its simplest form. So remember, what we need to do is ask ourselves, can we write the number under the radical, like in this case 18, as a product of two or more factors, one of which or two of which could be complete squares? Like in this case, if you think more, you will realize 18 is 9 by 2, which is, and we can see 9 is a complete square whose root we can find. So we have 3 root 2. Now, in this other sense, we could also as well still simplify it, but remember in this case, now we have to move another step, break the root 6 into 2 factors, which will be root 2 times root 3 times root 3. Okay, so this you can also go through the same process, but now a little longer than what we have here. And then again, you see you'll have a root, or you have 2 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3, which still gets us to what we had earlier, root 2 times root 9. And in this case, we have 3 multiplied by square root of 2. And square root of 2 is a surd because it's not an exact square root. So this is the simplified form of root 18. Now, in this case, we've dealt with a square root. The same procedure applies to any other cube root, any other surd of whichever order. Now, square root, we say, is a surd of order 2. And then cube root is referred to as a surd of order 3. And fourth root is a surd of order 4. So the procedure that we have explained here is applicable to any other type of surd, as long as under the root we don't have a number whose root can be found to be exact. So like in this case, root 18, you ensure we reduce it such that under the root, under the radical, we don't have a complete square. Like here, now we had a complete square of 9 and 2, but now we've found that root of 9 is 3. And now under the root or under the radical, the only number we remain with is 2. Thank you for your audience, and I would request that you hit that button for the bell if you have subscribed. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and hit the bell button so that each time I post a video, you'll be alerted. If there are any questions, be free to post them in the comment section, and I will be glad to respond to them. Bye bye, and thank you.